There's a reason why I quite dislike a lot of this fake positivity in this industry. Why I don't like just positive thinking by itself. I think it's cheesy. In fact, I actually think that you're being sold, you're being marketed a kind of a fake cure, a fake way to get out of stuff. And trust me, I, as everyone else, enjoy the promise being sold of just positivity. I enjoy it because it sounds easy, right? Just think a positive thought, right? And psychologically, you will develop yourself. However, through the years of being in this myself and successfully navigating these challenges and actually managing to change lifelong insecurities, lifelong, blockages, emotional blockages and all that, it came to my mind a realization that it's not about positivity only, because here's the thing. Being all about positivity is a kind of a bypass. It indicates that you are afraid, a kind of a coward, you might say, someone that wants to avoid life and all of its various flavors. Here's the thing, as a human being, you have a psyche inside yourself. And the psyche that you have, the mind that you have, it's capable of thinking in binaries. It's capable of thinking of good and bad. It's capable of thinking white and black. What that means is that fundamentally you are kind of stuck in a weird situation. The best scenario that you can imagine is always followed by the worst scenario that you can imagine, internally at least. Sometimes externally as well. But we're talking about the internals here. What does that mean? Well, it means you can conceptualize it, right? So you can say, well, okay, let me be hyper positive. Just like sort of force some positivity on myself. And there is value to that, by the way, but we'll talk about that later. But if you just try to force that on yourself, what usually occurs is like a seesaw where you just sort of push on one side, but the other side goes up, right? So there is, even if it's a delayed effect, an emergence from the other side. Now, here is why that happens and how to avoid that and how to utilize these mechanics into something that actually helps you build yourself up, build up the momentum, and I would say actually overall raise the overall positivity that you have in your life, in your psyche, and make you a happier, more productive person in general. Now, starting from the fact that, do you really think that you can just run away from these negative experiences that you have internally? You might try to. And this is what, when I got into this 10 years ago, I had a lot of insecurities, a lot of stuff that I want to work through, and a lot of things that I wanted to develop because I was facing real life challenges, socialization, starting a career, studying, like being expressive in my passions, in my hobbies, all of that, a lot of goals, and of course, you encounter some negativity coming up, some negative thoughts. And, you read up on some basics, self-development or positive thinking, and you go, well, it means you're not thinking positive thoughts enough. And you go, okay, well, I'll just try to force myself. I'll try to force these positive thoughts on myself. And it works for a little bit, then you notice it's not working. Well, here's the thing. The reason it doesn't work is because you have to let go of the negative things that you're thinking in order to think the positive things. But the only way that you're going to let go of them is if you actually process through them. And the word through is pretty accurately used here. Because here's the thing, whatever negative experiences you experienced and you feel psychologically, you can't really run away from them because there's nowhere to run. Like, how are you going to distract yourself from yourself? Those experiences are there, those feelings are there, and they are just feelings and thoughts, by the way. They're not that terrible. And your attempt to avoid them in a weird way even reinforces them. And when it comes to your general energy, excitement, passion management, your capacity to be focused and energized in life, those things highly depend on how much energy you have. This attempt to be positive while suppressing the negative, it's highly energy taxing. It's so energy taxing that you will never be able to be this high energy person that you want to be, right? The one that, I'm doing my things, then I'm doing this, then I'm working out, right? You need a lot of energy to do interesting stuff in life. That's the main currency of life, this psychological energy. And that's why I'm so fascinated about this topic, by the way, because I realized long ago that unless you manage this properly, you will always be lacking. You can be very good at stuff, but let me tell you something. You'd be way better if you manage this stuff, this internal regulation stuff, way better. It just makes sense. It's logical. So by going to those emotions, by the way, you start recognizing that the negative emotion that you're feeling is not actually real, right? It's only real because you reinforced it through so much avoidance. And of course, you avoid it for a good reason. It can be very dark. It can be extremely dark. And trust me, I know, I went through quite a few cycles of processing that kind of stuff. There's a word for it. It's called shadow work. At least that's one of the ways to call it. It's a conscious, deliberate attempt to go there where you're afraid of, that you don't want to experience, and experiencing it. It's very powerful. And every significant growth spurt that I had, which actually influenced my life positively, was always after me delving deep into that darkness. This is why I don't believe in sort of a just blind positivity for nothing. If you want more from life, you'll have to dig deeper into these dark elements of your psyche. And what's better is that once you do, it will start unlocking extra energy in you. But there's only one question that you have to answer yourself is, are you willing to do it? Are you willing to experience the pain and the suffering for as long as it takes to go through it? Now, ideally, what you're doing as a conscious person that is building his intrapersonal intelligence, right? That's your capacity to understand your own emotions, your own thoughts, and sort of regulate them, guide them. What you're doing as a person like that is you are developing skills to self-regulate, right? You don't just jump into the darkness. You learn to build the light. This is where the positive thinking does come in, even though I think it's just one part of many, right? You need to learn to meditate. You need to learn to do active meditations, passive meditations. I mean, fundamentally, a lot of stuff just falls into that, right? You need to build mental habits. You need to build value systems that align and help you survive, all of these challenges. You need to diversify your personality, meaning you need to have many things going for you, where a little loss in one area doesn't mean that you collapse, you have an ego death before you're ready for an ego death, and if you feel powerless and lost. So there's many things that you can do, and many other videos that I did or will do about that. However, this embrace of the shadow work, what it will do is it will unlock tremendous amounts of energy inside of you. And then you can utilize that into proper positive thinking. Proper positivity is when you do face the shadow in you and you go, oh, okay, I get it. I realize it. I accept it. I suffered through it. Now I'm choosing the positivity, because both of these sides are neutralized, okay? You need to neutralize the polarity, the psychological polarity. You need to realize that the bad is in a way the same thing as the good. The fact that you're trying to raise up the positivity while suppressing the negativity inside of you creates a psychological disbalance in you. In other words, you need to appreciate the activity when you're full of energy. If you want to appreciate that, you kind of have to learn to appreciate a deep rest, okay? If you want to appreciate a creative process, you need to appreciate also the introspective, contemplative process, right? If you want to build muscle, you need to learn to appreciate rest and sleep and all of that. It's always that duality. It's only psychologically that sometimes we try to run away from those things. Here's something that I will leave you with, though. You're not going to run away from these things. They will be with you your whole life unless you face them. But when you will face them head on and transcend them and transform them and transmute them into something higher, that'll actually unlock the next level in you. So don't get lost in this petty, simple-minded positivity and all that. It's great, but it's not the full picture, okay? The things that you have to face, you'll have to face. And most people, they're not telling you this because it's not a thing that sells. It's not a thing that you want to hear. I'm telling you this because part of the reason, or maybe one of the most highest reasons, there's many reasons why I'm doing this, is because honestly, I do feel a desire to express that stuff, because I can't believe that people are not as trained or educated in this intrapersonal intelligence as they should be. Because I look around and I see so many great people, so much potential, and so much potential in myself, and I see that most of the challenges, unless you're facing like real life challenges, but I'm talking those petty little challenges, they're because a person can't regulate their emotions. They're because a person can't create like a cohesive psychological value system which would allow them to take action consistently and then transform their life. It's like, it's so simple, relatively speaking, but we're not doing it. So we need this education, we need this understanding, we need to talk about this. And that's part of what I'm doing. And when you start doing this, you'll realize that there is another dimension to life. You are living in a psychological reality first. Now, yes, what physical, psychological, who is first, chicken or it doesn't matter. It's just a model. Just enjoy it. Just think about it. You're living in this reality. You have to learn to walk in it. You have to learn to act in it. Once you do, you'll start thinking in a multi-layered approach. You'll start thinking that, hey, I want to do some action. Well, what is the mental equivalent of that action? How should I prepare my mind and psyche to do this? At first, it'll be more about contemplating, and later on, it'll be automatic and efficient. It'll be way better once you start doing that. So don't fall for fake positivity. Embrace the negativity simply to transform it, release that energy, store it in you, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be greater than you thought it could be, because you'll realize that all the limitations that you thought you have are just like free real estate. It's free energy for you to utilize.